Hey you, I'm your nutrition coach. My name is Jackie Poole. Welcome to Happiness is a Healthier Habit. Let's get today's episode started. Hello. I am back from vacation. I am back in my little office, in my little studio, in my favorite place to be. Florida was amazing. We literally drove all over Florida. We drove through Pensacola, we drove through Tampa, St. Pete, Orlando. I mean, we were all over the place. So Florida has a deep spot in my heart because that is where our dream, home will be one day. So we are working our way up there, and it was really nice to hang out there for Memorial Weekend. And, this past week, I always think vacations are super fast, and we literally drove from Houston to Florida and back. We stopped at Louisiana and New Orleans with my parents and my kids. And I think this was one of the best trips that we've ever had. And the kids were amazing. And it was just beautiful weather. All of this rain was in Texas, and it was perfect. Like we couldn't have gone at a better time. And we just had such a blast enjoying our little family. So anyways, I am going to be discussing something that actually I don't think it's talked about very much, and is actually a very powerful window, I think, into an insight into your hormones, into your overall wellness. And I kind of touched a little bit about this when I talked to Elle in the previous episode. And this is kind of what sparked this specific episode. And it is the basal body temperature. And for short stance today, instead of saying all that, we're going to be calling it BBT. And I'm not talking about when you feel hot outside, when you walk out there in the Texas heat. We're not even the summer yet, and it's already super, super hot. I'm talking about when, you feel super hot inside doors, you're sweating. This is me. I'm just going to say it. Like, I can tell when I'm on the second half of my period or my cycle. So we're really going to dive into that. We're going to be talking about the temperature your body holds first thing in the morning, before your feet hit the floor, before you start your day. I think the BBT is one of the most underutilized free natural markers for really understanding kind of what's going on with our body, especially if you're a woman in our cycle. Another marker that can be used for fertility and even thyroid function. So I really wanted to dive in and kind of section what we're going to be talking about today. Why we should even care about it, how to track it, what is, the basal body temperature telling you. We're going to be talking about the phases, maybe some red flags to watch, and really why this matters and why I'm talking about it today. So I really wanted to dive in. So let's go. Okay, so what is BBT and why we should even care about it? So this is something that I noticed that my watch actually does. So let's start with the basics. Basal body temperature is your body's temperature at complete rest, measured right when you wake up, before you sit up, before you drink water, before you check your phone, before anything. And the reason it's important is, from what I've gathered, is because it really reflects what our hormones are doing, especially with progesterone throughout the cycle, right? And if you're someone who really wants to understand, for me, I am researching. This is kind of for me for fertility. If you're having kind of like irregular cycles or a lot of stress impacts you, or you feel, or you just want to feel more in control of your health, I think this is such a great tool for you to start using. And I think it really creates awareness of where we are in our cycle and maybe what certain things we can do to improve that feeling, right? And so today we're going to be discussing how to track your BBT. And it's super simple. You can go old school. For people that are really trying to have a hard time getting pregnant, they've definitely created like thermometers that can really read, and their accuracy is pretty good. You can get these, I think, at like Walgreens or Walmart, but honestly, that is not for me. That is too much. I like to do my watch instead, and it is just kind of an easier set done thing that I don't have to think about. And I want to say watches now are so accurate. And it really automates things even more. So again, you're in luck if you like to wear your watches. You can now track your BBT that way too. So this is not just like Apple Watches. It can be your Aura Ring. This can be like Temp Drop. It's really cool. You don't need to wake up for anything. It automatically does that. And so the app that I use for, tracking my cycle and all of that stuff is Flo. It is one of my favorites. I think I paid like $14 or something a year for it when you get it on sale. Or maybe it was more. I don't remember, but it was something like that, really cheap, that I just enjoy it. The information is really good, and it just tracks everything for me. It's spot on when my period is supposed to come. Like, it is just spot on, and I just really like that. So it syncs with that as well. And when we're talking about tracking and our cycle and all of that stuff, it makes it really super simple, where it's user friendly and I don't really have to do anything. It just kind of automate things. So I always tell clients, when we are starting to track this, anything you do, you want to give it a full 30 days. Even whether it's supplements, whether it's new exercises, whether it's a new routine, you want to make sure whatever you're trying something new or you're checking something new, you want to give it 30 days. So for this, I would definitely recommend doing like one full cycle before kind of drawing conclusions. And actually, the more information you give to these apps, the more accurate they become. So again, we're not looking for perfect patterns like, I'm supposed to be here. Everybody's different, but your body is your body and it is creating certain patterns. So when we track certain things, the more regular you do it, that's really when the magic happens. So I also kind of wanted to go phase by phase with this, right? Dive into it a little bit more. So we're going to walk through our cycle using the basal body temperature to kind of like guide us, right? So let's talk about the first half of our cycle, which is, let's start with day 1 through 5. This is when your hormones are at their lowest. This is when I feel my best. My body's the coolest. I am more energized. Your temperature is usually between 97 to 97.5 from what I've researched, and that tends to be pretty normal. Your body is shedding the uterine lining, so that's when you're, menstruating. And you're essentially hitting those temperatures at rest. So first thing when you wake up. And again, my smartwatch does a phenomenal job with that. And so that is the menstrual phase, day 1 through 5. And that's usually when I like to say you feel probably your coolest, your best. And so the next phase is the follicular phase. This is day 6 through 13, right? So I like to say this is the first half of my cycle. And so as estrogen is on the rise, your body's preparing for ovulation. If you have a regular cycle, your temperature is still staying pretty low and steady here. Typically, again, between 97, maybe 97.5 range. Not too much happens here on the temp chart, but your body is definitely hard at work behind the scenes. So usually the first half of the cycle, I feel, and especially the first, day 1 through 5, I feel my best. That's when I talk about doing, a 24-hour fast if you're able to do that. You can go low on carbs. You're more focused. You feel your best, right? I think you can probably go heavier on the weights. You feel great when you're working out. That is probably the better half of the cycle. Now, the second half would be ovulation. So this is around, day 14. Again, it's a hit and miss. Everybody's different. Sometimes you might ovulate a little bit later, a little bit sooner. This is where things kind of start getting a little bit exciting. They start to change. So in the ovulation day, which is day 14, you might see a little dip, followed by a rise in temperature, which is funny because I think I've seen this in my watch. Like, you're really cool. Like, you can see the charts on the Flo app. It is really cool how it shows you. And again, I've tracked for so long, like my patterns are pretty consistent. And so I feel great during like ovulation. And before, I like to say, because your temperature I feel great when I'm sleeping and all of these good things. And so then after, your temperature does start rising, usually 0.5 to, 1 degree higher. And this is your clue that ovulation has occurred, and progesterone is kicking in. So definitely something to look at if you are, in a fertility journey, if you're trying to get pregnant, or even if you don't use contraception, maybe like, okay, this might be a sign not to have sex on this specific day, or, great way to measure this based on whether you're trying to have a baby or not. And so the last phase is the luteal phase. So this is day 15 through 28. This is when I feel my hottest. Usually, sometimes I have a hard time sleeping. Your BBT definitely stays elevated thanks to progesterone. If you're tracking, again, fertility, this is kind of like your 2-week weight phase. And somebody that's like recently started with this, it's been kind of, two not pregnancy, like it's kind of hard to talk about. I've taken 2 pregnancy tests and they're both, negative. And so this 2-week wait is definitely a little bit stressful because I want to be pregnant so bad right now, which is funny because I never thought I wanted more kids. And now that we do want some more, this particular phase, and the more I learned about health, is definitely stressful and definitely a lot of patience. So if your temp stays high for more than 12 days, you could definitely be pregnant. If your temperature starts to drop, your period is probably more likely on the way. And so it is just one more thing to look at. If you are on a fertility journey. And so I can tell you, for me, this is definitely an indication. Like, I am a classic person that gets super hot at nights. Like, I need it colder on my second half. Something that does help me and has helped me has been the hormonal gel. My sleep is so much better during the second half of my cycle because temperature plays a big factor. And I remember my mom even telling me, like, I get hot at night, I get hot flashes, like sweat. And obviously she's older than me. But it does make a difference when you can kind of help those hormones kind of not spike to where you're miserable at night and can't sleep. I can tell you that that has definitely helped. And those are a little bit of red flags. So I do want to move on and talk about some of that when it comes to your BBT. And if, again, this is more geared towards a fertility tracker, which kind of is what I'm dealing with. So I like to talk about things that are relevant to what I'm experiencing, I'm trying to get done. And so red flags, if you are trying to get pregnant, to watch out for, right? So if there's no temperature rise, it could mean that you're not ovulating. If your BBT is consistently low, it could be worth checking. From what I've researched and gathered, that means it could be, your thyroid, or you're, having too much stress, or it could be that also we're under eating and it's affecting our metabolism. So that is something to look out for if our BBT is consistently low. If your luteal phase, which we talked about, that's day 15 through 28, if the temperature, if the high phase is less than 10 days, then that means probably progesterone is starting to get lower. And, if you're trying to get pregnant, we want it to stay higher because that is going to affect the temperature and is probably an indication that we are pregnant. So this is why I like to say, your body's talking to you. Your body's always talking to you, whether you want to listen or not. So that is just another way of our body letting us know and kind of tuning in and listening in. Because sometimes we don't know why our body is, and a lot of the popular answers are, oh, it's just you're getting old, oh, it's normal, but it's not normal, and there is things that we can get done. And it does matter, right? It matters whether you're trying to get pregnant or not, or you're just trying to feel better in your own skin, trying to sleep better, and you don't understand what's going on, and you're just feeling miserable. And that's just the popular thing these days, when, oh, it's normal because everybody's going through it, but it's not normal. And so we've normalized it, but it's not normal. And so tracking your BBT is definitely something that is pretty inexpensive if you already have a watch, which a lot of people do. It's very informative, and I like to think it's empowering. It gives me something else to look at, right, when we're tracking things. And honestly, I think as a woman that, there was years when we first moved to Austin where I was having struggling with sleep. I would feel too hot, and I had all these things going on, and my husband was never home because he was really working far. And sometimes we have so much in our plates, and it's hard for us to slow down and really notice things. It's just kind of check it to, I'll deal with it later, I'll figure it out later. But I think our temperature is just a really small way for us to get in tune with our body. Okay, this is going on. This is probably what's happening. Let me, try this or try that, and, figure it out without having to go to the doctor and get blood work done, right? It is just something simple that can be done, and to look at to create more awareness for ourselves. So today's episode, I really wanted to be more informative. This is something that it's kind of new to me. I didn't really know about. I knew that my watch was tracking it, but I didn't really understand the effect and what it really meant until I had this conversation with Elle. Again, if you haven't checked that episode, it's really great. I love her. Her energy is super high. She's really awesome. And if you've never tracked your BBT before, I encourage you to try it. Give it a full cycle. Honestly, I would give it 3. Like anything you do to build a habit, to see a result, to see a pattern, I think 3 full cycles, 90 days is always a way to go. That's how my habitual morning sunrise map is 90 days. And you really start seeing a pattern. You see what your body's telling you. It might be, the first time that you've tracked this, or, you're learning to be more aware about your body. And so this is just one way to sink in and be more in tune, instead of confused, like what's going on, and really starting to notice your body, right? So if you need help understanding your chart, I would love to talk about this more, reach out. We can go through this together. I'm not sure how, but we can definitely figure it out. There's a lot of information about this out there. And if you felt like this episode helped you, or you learned something today, you feel like, okay, I need to be more in tune with my body, share with a friend. I would really appreciate that. Somebody who's struggling with their, hormones, and, who really needs to hear this information, because I don't think I hear a lot about BBT. And so I think this was super informative. And if you thought so too, again, please share it out. Until next time, trust your body, track with intention, and know that you're not crazy. Our cycles are very complicated, but tracking these simple things don't have to be. And so until next time.